Welcome to Rooted and Reaching, a startup podcast about entrepreneurs and founders in the South Bend Elkhart region. I'm Bethany Hartley with Startup South Bend Elkhart.
And I'm Nick Kuhn with Elevate Ventures. Today's episode has Jared Bell with Myco Mushrooms. He shares a little bit about his journey on his farm to bring specialty mushrooms to the market.
Enjoy.
Here with Jared Bell. Jared, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. I'm glad to be here.
This is great. So we're just getting going on this podcast. So you're one of our first interviewees. How does it feel?
It feels pretty good. I feel honored to be here. Exciting. It's my first podcast, so yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's start at a really high level. This is a podcast about and for entrepreneurs and founders and startups. So Myco Mushrooms is your company.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
We're a mushroom farm based out of Elkhart, and my wife and I started our business right out of our garage a few years ago at the tail end of 2019, right before the pandemic hit. And it was about 2020, January 2020, when we got our first crops, and we just went to local restaurants and started bringing our mushrooms to chefs, and just kind of blew up from there.
So mushrooms are kind of a trending topic. How did you explore this space and say, that's something I'm interested in pursuing?
I just, it was one of those late nights. It was dark. I was hanging out in the basement, and at that time it was the winter, and I was laid off of my job with Kier Concrete, and I just came across this article, and it was about a young boy who started a science project on specialty mushrooms, and it just really intrigued me. And I just kind of went down this deep, dark rabbit hole of mushrooms, and just kind of started experimenting with things myself.
Sure. They have a bit of a stigma around them, mushrooms do.
Oh, for sure.
But there's a lot more to learn about this crop, which is a fascinating. Could you geek out a little bit on what is interesting to you about mushrooms?
The thing about mushrooms is like one thing I always tell somebody, because I get a lot of people that send me pictures of mushrooms they find in their yards, asking if they can eat them or cook them. And something I jokingly always tell people is you can eat any mushroom at least once. But the thing about the specialty mushrooms is just all the different uses that they have. I mean, the nutritional value that comes with some of these mushrooms. I mean, they all have their different tastes, their different textures, their different smells, and it's like you take a king trumpet mushroom or a blue oyster or a lion's mane mushroom, and comparing these mushrooms is kind of like comparing an apple to a head of lettuce. Just the difference in them. I mean, and just the taste, the taste of them. I mean, just eating them isn't the only use that they have. I fell down this rabbit hole of finding all these different applications people were, using specialty mushrooms for, from anything like myco remediation. I'm kind of stumbling over my words here. Myco remediation, where they're finding these mushrooms growing out in Chernobyl that are actually eating the radioactive, the radiation and out of the ground and out of the earth. Oh. You have people making packaging out of mushrooms based solely off of specialty mushrooms and the mycelium that they grow. You have people doing a lot of really awesome stuff with specialty mushrooms, not just eating them and cooking them.
Yeah. I mean, I think the normal paradigm for the average consumer is going to be that small place in the supermarket with the white mushrooms. What are those?
Those would be just white button mushrooms.
White button mushroom, perfect. Yeah. And that and Super Mario Brothers. I think that's your average consumer's just affiliation with this space. But those, you told me before, those are more commodity-based mushrooms. Those are kind of the average run-of-the-mill, and those are produced in a different way than what your approach is. How are commodity mushrooms grown and get to market?
So commodity mushrooms, your white and brown mushrooms like portobello or cremini, which a lot of people know those now as baby portobellos. Those are grown on beds of mulch and manure. and they're grown, about 60% of them are grown in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. It started back in the early 1900s with Italian immigrants, and they just, found a way to grow these commodity mushrooms, and it's history, since then.
So a lot of them are growing in a centralized place, and then they need to be transported across country.
Correct. In fact, they're opening one of those legacy farms in Kennett Square. They're opening a distribution center in Indianapolis at the end of this year, where all the mushrooms grown in Kennett Square, they get distributed to their different centers, and then from there they get taken out and delivered to parts of our country and even overseas to other countries.
Interesting. So then your Myco Mushrooms is dedicated to specialty mushrooms. So could you differentiate? You talked about the white button mushroom, the brown mushrooms. How many? I know there's a lot of varieties out there, but how many specialty mushrooms are you looking at bringing to market? Maybe what type of varieties, and maybe you could highlight a few.
So we're looking at growing about 10 to 12 different varieties of specialty mushrooms. Now the cool thing about mushrooms, there's actually 2 to 3 times more varieties of mushrooms on this planet than there are actually plants. But we're focusing on 10 to 12. I don't think we can do thousands, but the biggest difference I would say is definitely the nutritional value. All these specialty mushrooms, they have their own key differences. They have their own unique qualities, like lion's mane mushrooms, for example. A lot of people will call them pom-pom or bear tooth mushrooms. That's for all the mushroom hunters out there. You can go out and find these in the woods and, find them on trees during certain times of the year. But these mushrooms, you have case studies that are showing that they can actually help. They can actually help grow and repair the neural network in the brain and in the mind.
Wow.
So there's a Japanese scientist who did a large study on that, showing that these lion's mane mushrooms can help with dementia and issues with memory, and not just that, but they fall down to also gut health and high blood pressure. So they definitely have a huge nutritional impact on just your.
The hype is real.
Yeah, it really is.
Right on.
Yeah.
Let's switch a little bit the direction of this. I want to hear more about the business model that you're approaching. So you went forward with a farm. I'm going to grow, sell, and distribute the mushrooms,
Yep.
these specialty mushrooms. How are you doing that? Is this in your basement that you mentioned? Is this in your garage? Where are you at today in your business?
So my wife and I, we moved from the garage in our basement, and we bought a building in Elkhart. It was just a big manufacturing warehouse that we just outfitted with every room that we needed to do a mushroom farm. So we have a lab in there. We have warehouse space for filling the bags. We have incubation space to incubate our grow bags. And we have a fruiting room. So it's a climate controlled room that we can put the mushrooms in to give them the perfect climate to fruit and give us the mushrooms that we eat. So it's a small building. It's nothing, you don't need acres of land to grow a ton of mushrooms, like you would need for corn or soy or, other conventional agricultural crops. And, so it's essentially a vertical farm, and in a small, 3,800 square foot area, we can grow up to 5,000 pounds a week, worth of mushrooms.
Got it. And you're doing that currently, and where are you selling them?
So we're selling them to buyers in Chicago, local restaurants, local wholesale distributors. We haven't hit the retail market with selling to grocery stores yet, but we planned on doing this over time, and to get to that point, we had to do a lot of we had to get through a lot of red tape, like getting food safety certification and everything, which we did. And we wrote a food safety plan. We had the USDA come out. We had the local health department come out, so that way we could have these certifications in place so we could sell them to whoever wants them.
Interesting. And would you consider the model being successful?
Yes, very successful. There is a high demand for specialty mushrooms. There really is. That's the biggest problem with mushroom farms isn't selling the mushrooms, it's meeting the demand to supply the mushrooms.
And in a way, that's how you and I met first.
Yes.
So you reached out, you found Elevate Ventures, and I called or emailed and started a chat. This has all been fascinating. One of the things that stood out to me and still does is your appetite to learn about creating a business. Have you had any formal education in business management or administration?
No, not at all.
How did you learn to do this?
Google, YouTube, those have definitely been some of my greatest resources for learning how to run a business, for learning how to, and not just running a business, but growing the mushrooms as well, and the requirements that are needed for everything from, the process of getting my food safety certification to getting an LLC put in place to taxes. Everything. Google and YouTube, great resources.
A lot of people talk about starting a business and they have ideas. You made a business and you figured out how to do it. What aspects of who you are, your personality, allowed you to make that leap?
Since I was a young child, going back to first grade, I was out there shoveling snow, raking leaves, anything to make a buck, apart from just going to school. I always had this entrepreneurial spirit about myself. Even going back to, when I would work full-time jobs, I always had something on the side. So I always wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to create something new. And that's exactly what we did with our mushroom farm.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So you're in Elkhart, you're looking to expand. You reached out for assistance with some fundraising potentially or connections, and we're on the path to doing that, or you're on the path to doing that, I should say. What sort of resources have benefited you from being in the north central region of Indiana?
There's a lot of great opportunities out here. There's a lot of angel investors and venture capitalists and different funds and foundations that are out here to help small businesses get on track to grow their business and to grow their company. I couldn't be happier to be where we are with our business other than the state I grew up in.
Right on. And family is important to you. You've mentioned
Yes.
this several times. You have a big family.
Yes.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 10 brothers,
10 brothers
and sisters. We're all born and raised in South Bend.
And you just welcomed baby number 3.
Yes, I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So why not start a company in the midst of all that, right? Young family, it just makes sense. But you seem like the type that has energy for days, and you're passionate about what you do. So love hearing about what you're bringing to market. What resources are we missing or lacking that could be of assistance to you?
I would definitely say there should be some more community outreach, especially youth programs for younger people, so that way they can know at a younger age and possibly get started earlier than I did in life towards something more than what they are born into or what their viewpoint is on what they're destined for. I grew up, my family was not a farming family. We, my mom, she's a German immigrant, and she moved here when she was pregnant with me. And everybody I saw in life, they worked at factories, or they drove trucks, or they worked in retail, and they never really thought they had much of a chance. But I'm here to tell people that there is a chance and there are opportunities out there for you.
That's awesome. Jared, this has been great. I know this is a pretty succinct podcast. There's so much more I'd like to explore, and I'm looking forward to continuing to working with you on this venture. But you've put your mind, body, and effort into this mushroom farm, and which is going to, I know, grow to be more than just that. We were chatting about that a little bit before the podcast about what your future growth goals are. ideally, we're going to have you back in about a year or so, and we're going to check in with your progress, and you're going to be a huge success story for the region. Thanks for showing up today.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm glad to be here.
Oh yeah, taking some time, and look forward to continuing to work with you. And until next time.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you too.